Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we'll be taking a look at Gamemax's Rampage RPG 850W 80 plus bronze semi-modular power supply. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so in today's video we'll be taking a look at a power supply which possibly may not appeal to everybody. This one is definitely somewhat of a rare breed. So this is an 850W power supply with a 80 plus bronze rating. It's semi-modular and actually it's pretty cheap for an 850W power supply of this particular spec. This one at the moment retails on places like CCL in the UK for around about £50, which actually isn't too bad, especially when you look into the fact that it is actually an 850W power supply. The bronze rating may be something which some people may be a little bit like, okay, I would have preferred a gold at least, or maybe titanium. But obviously, if you go for an 80 plus gold at this kind of rating, then yeah, you're going to be paying considerably more, probably actually double the price. So there is definitely a niche in the market for where this applies. It's got a ton of features. It's actually got Japanese main capacitors, loads and loads of cabling, nice flat black cables which are really easy to cable manage, and it looks pretty decent. And obviously, again, if you need 850 watts, then the price is pretty decent. So let's go through, do a quick unboxing, see what we actually get, and see if this is actually the right power supply for you. So first of all, let's take a look at the packaging. So this is part of their new Rampage range. Pretty nice packaging actually. You've got Real Power Gaming on there, Rampage 850 watts. They actually do a whole range of different wattages. So there's a couple in the semi-modular range, which are like 750s above. But if you want something a little bit lower, there are some Rampage models which go down to around about 500 watts. Those are completely captive cables, but certainly might fit the build that you're actually trying to do. On the sides, we've got some multilingual information, and on the back here, we've got some more information about the power supply itself, and also it goes into some detail about showing you the individual cables. Now we'll go through the individual cables later on in the video. We'll go through lengths and connectivity, etc. So you can tell if this is actually going to be right for the amount of peripherals you actually need, and whether or not the cables will actually stretch to where you need them to go. So quickly drilling through some of the specs here. So this is a semi-modular cable management system, allows for a cleaner build and increased airflow, compliant with ATX 12V version 2.4 and up to 88% efficiency. Now I have actually gone to the trouble of going to the ClearPlus site and downloading the actual certificate that Gamemax have been awarded for this particular power supply. I'll put some links in the video description so you can check it out for yourself. But essentially you're looking at 10% load, 84.21%, at 20% load, 88.32%, at 50% load we're looking at 89.37%, and at 100% load we're looking at 85.99% of the 80 plus rating. So yeah, actually not too bad at all. It also goes on to talk about the single rail, also the extra cabling, etc, etc, up to 6 SATA connectors, 6 Molex connectors, and you've got APF-C and all those kinds of cool features, overload protection, etc, etc. Again, if you want the full spec on this, I'll put some links in the video description so you can check it out in more detail. So let's take a look and see what we actually get in the packaging. So first of all, we are greeted with some fittings. So we've got some screws there to actually put the power supply into the case, which is great. And also got some cable ties there for cable management. Next up, there is a multilingual manual. It goes through again, tells you more about the individual specifications, cables, etc, etc. Next up, there is a 13 amp UK style plug. Obviously, depending on which region you're buying this in, you'll get a plug for your particular use. We get a bunch of cables, which we'll take a look at in more depth later. And last up, we get the power supply itself. And actually, it's quite a weighty, chunky beast. It really is. So on the side here, we've got RPG 850W Rampage. So that may be visible depending on the case you're using. On the back, we've got a on-off rocker switch. We've got the IEC connection for the kettle lead. Also, we've got a nice grilled section there to let the air out. On the other side, we've got the label with all the specifications on. And underneath we've got this fan. So this is using one of Gamemax's own 14cm low noise fans. That's going to be great. Obviously a 14cm fan is much better than a 12 for noise and airflow, etc, etc. So yeah, should keep it nice and cool. And I think that is partially the reason why it actually got some decent ratings when they went to ClearPlus. Looking at the other side of the unit, so we've got our connectivity here for our semi-modular. Now you probably could use this if you wanted to, just as it is with these cables here. Again, depending on your setup and what your needs are. But certainly if you want to, you have got the full selection of cables to plug into these ports here, so you can connect up an absolute mountain of devices. So let's take a look at the cabling. So first of all, the cabling for the main ones, which are actually captive. So obviously this is semi-modular. That means that some of the cables are removable, some of them are fixed. and the ones that are fixed are the ones which you are obviously going to need to use. So one of which is your 24-pin main power connector for the motherboard. This cable is right about 22 inches long, so yeah, pretty decent length on that one. And the other two cables which are permanently connected are the ones for your EPS. So this is your EPS connector for your CPU, or additional CPU power, which is normally split into two 4-pin connection blocks. So like these, they just slide together nice and easily. And you do actually get two of those. So if you've got a motherboard with two 8-pin connections, absolutely fine. This one is actually a little bit longer, so this is 27 inches, plus there's an additional 6 inches between each EPS connection. So we've got the rest of the cables all laid out here, so let's take a look and see what we get. So first of all, I'll go with probably the lesser used ones. So first of all is the Molex connection. So you've got your 6-pin connector there, which goes into the back of the power supply. You've then got a 20-inch cable, which then again splits into 20 plus 6 plus 6. So you've got 3 connections on this cable. You do actually have 2 of these cables, so you can have up to 6 Molex style connections off the power supply. Next up is one that most of you are probably going to use at some point or other. So these are the SATA connections. Again, 6-pin connection going into the back of the power supply. You've then got 20 inches of cable between the plug and the first of the SATA connections. And then you've got an additional 6 inches between SATA 1 to SATA 2 and another 6 inches to SATA 3. So each one of these cables can connect up to 3 SATA devices. And again, as with the Molex, there are 2 of these cables included. Last one is going to be the PCI Express connections for your graphics cards. So these are a similar sort of deal. So these ones are actually a 4-pin connection going into the back of the power supply. That makes it really nice and easy. So when you're actually building your system, we often get on our Discord where people have plugged in things like EPS connectors or GPU connectors, and they've mixed them up. With this kind of setup, it's almost impossible to do. So this is really good, very helpful for those novice builders and professionals alike. The PCIe cable is a little bit shorter, which makes sense because graphics cards generally tend to be closer to the power supply itself. So between the 8-pin connector and the first of our 8-pin connectors, which is the 6+2, which has got the removable tag on the side, that is just 18 inches. And then between the first part of the cable and the second, you've got 6 inches. So again, if you've got a graphics card which needs 2 of these, relatively easy to cable manage them together. Of course, you don't have to use them both. You can if you want to. Just tuck one of them away and just use one into your graphics card. As with the rest of the cables in this set, you get 2 of these, so you could, if you wanted to, have some kind of crazy SLI setup, or maybe if you've got a particularly heavy-duty graphics card that needs possibly 3 8-pin connectors, then you could do that using these 2 cables. So that is it for all the cables and the product itself. I've got to be honest with you, this is a slightly odd one. I'm really not too sure who this is aimed at. I know probably they've aimed and looked at the range and thought, well, we've got 500 watt, we've got 600 watt, we've got 700 watt, we've got 750. Hey, let's go whole hog and go for an 850. Now there is a very odd thing which happens in the industry with this. The 12 volt rail itself is 70 amps. So normally if you times that, you get kind of 720 watts, which is roughly what it puts out on that 12 volt rail. So when they call it an 850, that is the combined total, including the other 3 volt and 5 volt rails. So realistically, this is kind of I would say a 700 watt, 720 watt power supply. But still, at this price point, there is some really odd competition. You've got EVGA with their BQ model, which, yeah, similar sort of setup, although you do get a 5-year warranty with that one. This, sadly, is only a 2-year warranty, but I guess that is again reflected in the price. The EVGA BQ is getting on for £75–80, whereas this is about 50. So if you do want those extra few years of warranty, then maybe it's worth spending a little bit more money. But if you've got a system and maybe you're not going to be planning to keep it more than about 2 years, then this is probably a good shout. So let me know what you think about this one in the comments section below. But in the meantime, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.